A warm welcome to each one of you at the first session of NASSCOM's Immersive Series on building World Class Technology CoEs. Thank you all for joining today, and I am Madhusudanan, part of the ER&D team. And as you are aware, engineering R&D from India is at its inflection point, and there is a need for a significant need for global centers of excellence, which is actually growing at an unprecedented pace, with more companies and looking to develop centers across different cultures and geographies. Today's session is an outcome of many requests from aspiring GCCs in India to learn from industry peers on their journey and best practices. NASSCOM ER&D Council, is creating multiple platforms where we can find ways to connect with our industry peers and learn from each other. As I said, it is like we all learn best through interaction, exchange, and collaboration with each others. And from outside looking in, it's easier to help keep up with the trends and stay ahead in the game than to find some time researching our own on topics like this. Leading an organization is no success and easy task, but our members are incredible at articulating their learnings and key strategies. That's our core strength as well of this ecosystem. Today we have Dipesh Shah, Corporate Vice President and MD of Samsung Research India-Bangalore, to share his key learnings in setting up Center of Excellences. And along with Dipesh, with the dialogue, we will have Karan Kamal, co-founder of Future Factor 360, moderating session. As all of you, I'm also eagerly looking to learn how to implement a globally recognized Center of Excellences, and it is great having both of you, Dipesh and Karan, as speakers today. Over to you, Karan, to set the context and take the discussion forward.
Thank you very much, Madhu, and a very good morning to all of those who've joined us today. The objective of this immersive series is to have leaders from the Indian GCCs to share their insights, experience on building and scaling world-class technology centers of excellence. Over the years, as we have witnessed, GCCs in India have undergone a paradigm shift in terms of maturity. And a large part of this change has been owing to the setup of centers of excellence that have transformed these centers from just engineering support centers to strategic business enablers for the parent enterprise. The role of CoEs have become even more prominent and pronounced in the current era, where the changing market dynamics, the advent of new technologies, evolving customer expectations, have actually compelled enterprises to continuously innovate with speed and agility to gain competitive advantage. CoEs have actually enabled global organizations to create cutting-edge technologies to not just drive revenue growth, but also help drive competitive differentiation, foster customer delight, and also enable operational excellence. In addition, we've also seen that some of the CoEs that have been set up in India have served as incubators of innovation and are enabling organizations globally to fail fast, learn fast, and win fast. So today, joining me as a part of this discussion is Dipesh Shah, who's the Corporate Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Samsung Research and Development Institute, India-Bangalore. Dipesh has been a driving force behind SRIB's success in India. And as you can see in Dipesh's background, Samsung Research Institute would be celebrating 25 glorious years of success in India. And a quick fact about Dipesh is that he was Samsung's very first employee in India. And I don't think we can have a better person to share the journey of Samsung's success with us. So I'm incredibly excited to be a part of this discussion. So please join me in welcoming Dipesh Shah.
Thank you, Karan. My pleasure. Thank you.
Right, as we get started with our discussion, my request to the audience is that you can start posting questions, which I can bring up with Dipesh as I move forward with the discussion. Dipesh, any quick thoughts before we get started?
No, it's NASSCOM has been, great ecosystem enabler. So, more than happy to play a very small part in, such a large ecosystem being built. We've been part of this. We've been benefiting a lot from this. So whatever in small portion we can contribute, more than happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Dipesh. So let me get started. SRIB has established multiple technology CoEs. What are some of the focus areas of these CoEs that have been established? So is this largely around, some of the current technology focus areas? Are these around futuristic focus areas? And it's also good to understand, what are the market needs that these CoEs are serving, and also what organizational imperatives are being addressed through these CoEs that have been set up as a part of SRIB.
Samsung being a very, very large company, let me give you a brief context. Then in the context, you can understand SRIB. So we have a primarily, 3 business lines, which we call, IM business, information and media. It's all about, smartphones, 4G networks, 5G networks. That's one part of our business. Second is about consumer electronics, which is, your smart televisions, all your home appliances. And the third business is about semiconductors. So together, between the 3 units, we have about 4 R&D centers with close to about 11,000 plus R&D engineers in India. But SRIB belongs to the corporate research center of Samsung. And we have about 23 such research centers across the world, with headquarters being in Korea. 23 research centers are there. So each R&D center is identified for a specific area of expertise. You may want to call it, centers of excellence or COE. So the Bangalore center is well known for our expertise and our, achievements in wireless communications area. That's number 1 COE that we have. We can call it modem, protocol stack engineering, whatever. So the wireless communication capabilities are very, very strong in Bangalore. I think not just within Samsung, Bangalore as an ecosystem is very, very strong in wireless communications. Second area is around camera software. If you pick up any Galaxy smartphone, most of image and video processing functions, would be largely contributed out of Bangalore. So in camera, all the way from, application to framework to drivers to all the vision AI technologies and system software, the entire stack over a period of many years we're contributing. The third area is, we call it AI productization. AI is very, very vast in Samsung. There are multiple R&D centers and multiple AI centers, having been set up in the world to focus on AI technologies. So Bangalore engineers are very, very good in applying AI into real products. Vision AI, voice AI, text AI, data intelligence, all of these areas. That's the third center of excellence. And the fourth one is Internet of Things, our Smart Things Cloud, Smart Things application, so entire IoT and the connected device ecosystem of Samsung. So there are these 4 areas where over a period of last 2 decades, this center has established, some capability, some engines and frameworks have been developed based on which, new innovations can be applied to each product. So we work at the platform level, and then whenever a new product, a new smart television or a new smartphone or a new family hub refrigerator gets shipped, it picks those software components that were pre-developed, understanding consumer needs in advance. And that's how in our primary flagship products, I think your question was, what's the market impact or what's the business imperative? Especially in the B2C, innovation drives everything. In B2B also innovation is important, but the cycles are longer, but in B2C cycles are very, very short. So the number of innovations that need to be rolled out needs to be quick and up there. So especially when we have flagship products like Galaxy S21 Ultra, for example, or Fold 3, or Neo QLED TV, or Family Hub refrigerator, every time a new flagship product is announced by Samsung, we are checking here, okay, what part of SRIB's technology components have enabled those new use cases. That's the primary purpose of this R&D center. And even in India, understanding local consumers, creating products, especially for India, sometimes influencing to create a hardware product for India. For example, Samsung M series is available now, of course, available in few countries, but was made for India, for Indian consumers, for Indian millennials, based on the influence created out of Indian ecosystem. And a lot of software components, user experience that goes along with it is created in India. That's a broad definition of what are the 4 areas where Samsung Global believes that SRI Bangalore can contribute is wireless communications, which is 5G technologies, both in terminal side and network side, camera technologies, which is largely image processing, AI technologies, which is vision, voice, text, and data intelligence, and last one is IoT, the connected device ecosystem, to start with.
No, that was excellent context, Dipesh. And these are truly, cutting edge technologies that's defining the future of Samsung's product portfolio. But a question there is, how did you actually go about building a business case that, India SRIB specifically has the ability and the capability to work on some of these technologies? So what was involved? How did you influence the global stakeholders to place that trust in India?
There are phases of it. I think there are multiple things that have contributed in this journey for sure. Initially, it was just an engineering support kind of role to the existing, global projects where you basically assign, a well-talented, capable engineer who could work with your global teams in trenches. And that's when you can establish the trust that, oh, these people seems to know a lot about this technology or this consumers. So it starts with working in trenches and building that initial credibility, and of course capability by hiring the right people. Ecosystem definitely played a role. I think if you maybe later in the talk I can talk more about ecosystem, but definitely Bangalore as an ecosystem played a role, because there were companies here that had already established in Samsung Global's mindset that for multimedia stacks and for wireless communication stacks, you can go to Bangalore. There are so many companies that knows well these areas. So that helped to establish. But one lever, the primary lever that I think created that shift towards COE, from engineering support towards center of excellence, is preparing for something like that in advance. For example, in 2011, we started investing in 5G in Bangalore. At that time, there was not even a 5G standard, and nobody from corporate headquarters had asked us or created a project in 5G. It was just local engineers' ambition. While developing 4G technology, they understood the limitations of 4G, and they saw a new technology like millimeter wave, for example, coming, beamforming coming, massive MIMO coming. So they understood how to utilize these new technology enablers and create, maybe 10 times more data speed, 10 times more less latency. So they started conceptualizing, 5G way back in 2011, created several patents in this area. So that again added to our credibility of this organization. Published papers in several leading journals, be it, IEEE or any of the leading. We have about 53 journals which we have earmarked as the top tier journals in the world. So publishing there also increases the credibility of the organization that in this area we are pretty good. So we started with pre-development, conceptualization, POC, made some patents, joined the standard body. In our case, we are a bit lucky because in a global standard, corporate has given us a mandate to be in the front end, steering Samsung's inputs into global standards from India. So the vice chair for 3GPP, 2 committees are from Bangalore, actually. The entire 3GPP's 2 global committees, vice chair position is from Bangalore. So establishing that standards position, doing advanced development, working with leading operators, doing some pre-5G launch with them, learning from the technology. And then when the 5G really came up, I think around 2000, S10 was the first 5G device in the world. So it took about 8 years journey from start to establishing ourselves as a COE. And now, we already started working on 6G from last year, even though it might get launched in the market in 2028. So you just need to complete one cycle, go deep and establish your credibility through multiple means: POC, demo, standards, patents, pre-development, and commercialization. The entire range is how we did it.
It's interesting that you say that, Dipesh. So when some of the Indian engineers started working on the 5G initiatives way back, so how were the budgets looked at? Was this something that was done proactively by the teams, or was there some kind of a budget that was allocated to say that, look, we will work on something futuristic? So how was the whole budget around some of these initiatives facilitated?
I think many GCCs knows this is the difficult part. Actually, we work on annual budgets for most projects. So creating budget for such advanced development, like 7 years, 8 years in advance, I don't think at least Samsung Bangalore has reached that stage that we get a global agreement to have 7, 8 years in advance some budget for creating technology. But the young engineers here are very ambitious, and they approach, they are willing to do moonlighting. They can do, they can quickly complete their project so that they can secure some, headroom for pre-development. They are usually not shying away from utilizing some existing technology, existing open sources. So very, very strong utilization and understanding of the availability of open source, so that you get a quick jump in what you want to build. So with very little budget, little resource, you are able to create some meaningful contribution. And then after that, once initial hurdles are cleared, after that securing budget has never been an issue, because many, like 1 or 2 patents in that area, 1 paper accepted in a leading journal, 2 or 3 demos, 1 consumer validation saying, oh, this works for us. After that, securing budget is not a problem. But yes, initially it is all local initiative and largely moonlighting by the young engineers that they can create new stuff.
That's interesting. So Dipesh, how much has having expats from Samsung's global locations helped SRIB, or for that matter, is SRIB also having global leadership roles? If you could throw some light on this, the role of expats in the center, as well as Indian leaders playing global leadership roles.
Very, very, very important, to establish COE, or as we move through phases of organization. So let me quickly tell you how SRIB has moved. Of course, initial first 5 to 7 years was all about hiring great talent from the local market and connecting them to global project leaders and do engineering support. But then came a time when lots of standards came. 3GPP, MPEG 4, H.263, IEEE, lots of RFCs, IPv6. So when many standards came out at that time, luckily in the Samsung context, I am saying, because we have a lot of English-speaking people compared to our headquarters. I can't say that for a US company though, but because of that advantage, the ability to understand and implement a very comprehensive standard like a 3GPP. I mean, if you just print the 3GPP standard document, it would cover a heap like this height. So understanding that document just like someone else in the world has understood, so that interoperability is not an issue. Such approach by which we were able to convert from an engineering support center to which we call a solutions development center. So any standards based solution was created out of Bangalore. For example, voice over LTE, which powers India's free voice calls today. When we developed voice over LTE, that was the world's first. In 2013, we launched the world's first voice over LTE. That was completely developed out of Bangalore, and it was possible because the standard was available. You didn't need to have a consumer reach to understand what to develop. You had a standards telling you what to develop, and you were able to develop it and go globally. So these were the phases. In each phase, the organization, governance, leadership, expat role. Now I will explain. See, for a typical US company, many times well-established, the technical guru or a vice president level person in USA, if they come to India for like 2, 3, 4 year stint, they can create a very good collaboration between the headquarters and the local GCC. For us, we don't have that luxury. We don't have many Indian people working in Korea who are willing to come back. So our approach towards this is the expats. So those who are typically number one, number two, front runners in Korea who are likely to be promoted, we try to get those people into Bangalore office. They work here for 3 to 4 years. So they make sure that our internal efforts are at the right time connected to the global initiatives, so that the enough and right attention comes into our internal initiatives, and then they try to get the skin in the game from the global VPs. After that, the project gets into a very virtuous cycle. So the timing is very important. It's not just how great is the innovation or what's the fantastic awesome prototype that you have, but in this year the Samsung One UI 3.0 is focusing on the easy access. In next year, Samsung One UI 4.0 is focusing on visual comfort. So such broad directions are available. So we connect our local projects to those broad directions. So it looks like we are enabling what global wants to achieve for our positioning in the market. So that work expats do. Additionally, I think we had 3 leaders. One is, of course, Dr. Aloknath Dey, who is the CTO. He was also corporate vice president. And Balaji Hulur, who is leading our camera software. And Mohan Rao, I think he's one of the leading protocol, wireless communication expert in the world. So these 3 people, they had a global role. So Mohan was not only leading Bangalore 5G, he was leading global 5G projects. And for this, he had to shuttle like every month, one month he would work in Korea, 1 month he would work here. Dr. Alok led the Smart Things project globally. So he had a IoT advanced lab in Korea and an extension of that in Bangalore as part of his activity. Balaji Hulur has a role between Vietnam, Noida and Bangalore. He leads one common team for all the A series and M series camera worldwide are led by Balaji Hulur. So this also helps to establish that, if they are able to contribute at the A and M series, the innovative level, why don't we take them to the next level to contribute to the S, Note and flagship? Definitely these two helps to establish, setting up COE once is easy, but creating charter regularly over a period of time, these 2 entities definitely help Karan. Karan, you're muted.
So in this 25-year journey, Dipesh, so how long did it take for the Indian teams to actually say that they could assume global leadership roles? At what point of time in the journey was this made possible?
I think COE was the primary reason. If we didn't have the Center of Excellence journeys, if we continue to remain an engineering expertise, engineer support, the last mile engineering R&D center, at least in Samsung context, I wouldn't have thought that we would get a global leadership role. But because that Center of Excellence was established and they saw that the local leaders have a vision and ambition that is sometimes surpassing the corporate vice president. That vision and ambition came because of the vision and ambition to set up the COE in the first place. So that vision and ambition, when it was detected, I think the global leadership role started coming out.
That's perfect. Dipesh, when we look at these COEs, what are the typical KPIs that get measured? So is it in terms of the number of innovations that the COEs is able to come up with? Is it in terms of the business impact? Is it in terms of cost? So what would be some of the key dimensions around which the success of the COEs are measured?
Typical GCC problem, isn't it? Like, we don't know how to measure our contribution. Because in a big company, suppose, can I say the overall worldwide smartphone business is about $90 billion. In that, let's say we have about 9,000 software engineers. Out of that, 1,500 are in India. So we contributed to this much. These are not reasonable, actually, because it's not just the engineering that drives that kind of revenue. Engineering is just a very small part of the entire revenue base. So such loose connection doesn't help. So we have two kinds of measures. One is globally established, one is local. Globally established measures for COE are, in terms of deliverables, they are like, you won't believe, even in Samsung, when the flagship product gets announced during Unpack, what are the top 3 features that will be emphasized in that Unpack presentation? Even we wouldn't know it before the Unpack happens. So all our engineers will be watching with an unbated breath, like, oh, is it the feature that was developed from SRI Bangalore? Is it going to be part of one of the top 3 innovations that will be announced to the world? So that's a very clear, visible KPI. And we are happy that since Galaxy S3, almost every S3, S4, in S9, when we said we redefined the camera, in S21 Ultra, when we said this is the best portrait picture in the world, those technologies were developed out of SRI Bangalore. So in terms of deliverable, when our feature is used as a marketing feature for a flagship product, it kind of gets established that there was a big impact to the business because of this COE. The second measure is all about creativity. So how many patents, how many papers published, this is another standard. Third is about capacity creation. COE is not about just what you are delivering today. COE is about what capacity you are building for the future innovation. So in that sense, what POC, so there will be global competitions in Samsung. So out of these global competitions, how many were won by our COEs? And that can also get funding, but also gets a very high visibility that globally in this particular domain, Samsung Bangalore seems to have the best knowledge. So these are very globally accepted measures. Locally, we have there are many MBAs here, so a typical 2x2. Our 2x2 is, we have one x-axis which talks about business impact, and the y-axis talks about if that business impact really happens, how much credibility will be passed to the local GCC, that because of this GCC, that business impact happened. So we measure our portfolio of projects on these 4 quadrants. How many percent of our projects are such that there will be huge business impact? But people will think, yeah, it just happened. I mean, it's not just because there was a GCC contribution in that. Versus there will be projects where there will be huge business impact, and then the GCC would be primary contributor into that. So we manage this 2x2 portfolio of projects, and over a period of last 1 decade, We have shifted a lot of projects to the biz impact high, SRIB credibility high. So these were the measures, Karan, that guides us every year to move in the right direction.
And does cost continue to be a factor, Dipesh? Is that even a part of any of the discussions, or it's off the table?
In the last 4 to 5 years, I think cost was off the table. I have not seen any CXO level discussing cost with me. But the way it's going now, I think it will come back on the table in next 2 to 3 years. If we continue to grow at 85,000, 90,000, if we touch $100,000, cost will be back on table. So we have another 2-3 years to change our portfolio, to change our capability, so that even at 100,000, cost should not come on the table. So that's the journey forward, which is very tough.
So I have a question from the audience, wherein the question is around: are you looking at automation, etc., to actually drive some of this cost effectiveness initiatives as the talent costs go up?
One good thing about Indian engineers is that anything that can be automated, they are the first ones. You don't need a corporate mandate for that. They are the first ones to come up and show you that they've automated their stuff, because they want to do something more, something new, something different. So anything that can be automated, especially in the, let's say, DevOps area, let's say test area, these are all already done like a decade before, right? But in the software development, so for example, to create the AI pipeline, the training pipeline in terms of how the data comes into the organization, how the data gets cleaned up, how the data gets labeled, how it gets into the training pipeline, how does the GPU, NPU resources get allocated towards multiple AI engines that are like contesting for those resources. All of these automation happened during last 3 to 4 years. Definitely helped. So if the same job was done by, let's say, about, this is a thumb rule, okay, just in my mind, about 15 people before, now it's done by about 8-9 people. So that much productivity is also improved. But I don't think it's only India. Everywhere productivity is improved. So it's just, it's not helping to establish that our cost competitiveness in any sense.
Sure. So you also mentioned about the India Center actually collaborating with some of the global centers. So what have been some of the best practices to enable the seamless collaboration in terms of governance structures, right? So does the India Center operate with autonomy, or is there some kind of mandates that India Center gets from other global locations? So what would be the governance structure, Dipesh, which has enabled the success of some of these CoEs?
For each of these 3 businesses that I talked about, there is a global R&D outreach group in Korea, which basically establishes through a regular because unless the leader commits to such collaboration across GCCs, it doesn't happen. Everybody wants to work directly with the parent. So there must be some win-win established between the 2 GCCs for them to be committed to this collaboration. And for us, US has been one such win-win collaboration.
So just yesterday there was an article in the Mint talking about how SRIB has been promoting a patent culture. There are about 3,500 patents that have been filed from India in the last 10 years. That makes it almost about 350 patents a year, which is one patent a day. So what's the secret sauce behind fostering this kind of a innovation culture within Samsung, Dipesh?
Largely comes from our corporate. Karan, maybe for over the last decade, I think in the US patent office, if there is a number one, number two, it's always IBM and Samsung. So it comes from the global culture in terms of the focus on intellectual property creation. And I would extend a little bit further, saying it's not just Samsung culture, it's a South Korea culture to establish, the patent base. Because there are leading high-tech industries where the country is committed to move forward, and patent portfolio is very, very critical if you want to play really that high-tech role. So it comes from there. But having said that, the GCC inside for India, there are specific processes that we have established over the last decade. The one that makes you really happy is that the young engineers who come out of the top, let's say 60 NIRF ranking colleges, when they join us, within the first 3 years, about 30 to 40% of them are creating, one patent of their own. So that's a very interesting thing. So when you just come out of the college, within 2 to 3 years, if you are able to create a, patent, that means it's a process that's working. It's not the prior experience or the know-how or the knowledge. There's a process by which CoE based, the patent drives are there, that makes people aware of the latest state of art, and all the tools are available to understand, what's prior art. Anything that in mobile, anybody sitting at home can think of a great idea, but when you come and do prior art, these are already patented like 10, 15 years before. So there are tools available by which prior art is easy to search. And then there is this, like I said, the innovation happens at intersection. So this is very unique place where communication people, AI people, and IoT people are coming together. And at the cross section of these, definitely there are many, many opportunities to create, innovative thoughts and ideas. So it's just our portfolio and our processes and our tools, I think. And of course, people are creating, no doubt.
That's very interesting. So is patents one of the key expectations from the talent in terms of their PLM, or it's more voluntary?
For certain areas, for people who participate in research, standards, advanced projects, it's part of their MBO. So that's their deliverable, basically. So that might be roughly about 20% engineers in Bangalore R&D who might have patent as their MBO. Whereas for the remaining 80%, even if it is voluntary, but if they achieve it, it has associated rewards and recognition, and helps in the career growth in the company.
Speaking of talent, Dipesh, again, you have emphasized the fact that talent is the critical element of establishing successful CoEs, and I've been getting a lot of questions from the audience in terms of, how is SRIB? What are some of the best practices that have been adopted to attract and retain talent? And one specific question has also been, how are you handling, the great resignation crisis at this time?
I was about to say, on the lighter side, can I skip the retain question? But that's okay. I can't skip, so I will. I will address that. I think one way CoE helps is also to attract talent, because people want to come and work for gurus in the field. See, there was time when people are chasing brands. That's okay. That is still there. But slowly and slowly, people will start focusing their career goal towards gurus, technical gurus, well-established thought leaders, rather than just brand. So when a CoE happens, a lot of good talent comes and joins the CoE, because there is initiatives there are funds there are tools, there is infrastructure, there is future vision, there is roadmap. So people want to come and join. So you have to create a space where good talent first starts, trickling in. and then automatically kind of pull gets established. And then after that, so today, maybe in this call, I can say if you talk to any wireless communication protocol software engineer in the country, most likely, which we can say MPSA, most preferred single answer in his mind would be, Samsung. That's where he would like to develop his career, because the world's first, 4G, world's first voice over LTE, world's first 5G, several technologies were developed out of this COE center here. So people who are very tech-oriented, innovation-oriented would look forward as a pull to get joined to this workforce that is already there, and which is creating such innovations over a period of time. In the new area, it gets a little difficult. For example, there is a Samsung Ads project here. So in that, we are not the greatest and latest in Indian ecosystem. So we have to start from scratch. We have to establish, the right expertise. So some programs are there. One program is, every 2 years once we get about 10 to 15 returning Indians from US to work for Bangalore. So we go there, we regularly conduct, interviews, and typically one good hire takes between 6 to 9 months of engagement with a candidate in US who has spent already between 12 to 18 years in US. So it takes 6 to 9 months of engagement. So every 2 years we get between 10 to 15 people there. So why we need those people is they know why something needs to be done, because our engineers are very good at what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and by when it needs to be done. This is easy problem. But why something should be done? What's our role in the ecosystem? What stakeholders are going to bring in? How do we plug into the ecosystem and deliver our value to consumer? This understanding of the chain and the end-to-end. So such talent, when they come from well-established corporations who have done this in their previous role, definitely helps to attract improve the capability of existing talent by providing that exposure. What we miss in a B2C in a country like India is exposure to luxury lifestyle, for example. So you need to bring those people who will connect these young people to understand what does a luxury lifestyle really means and how do we deliver that. Second is, we have a thought leadership program. Like I was telling, today maybe talent is chasing brand, but maybe in 5 years, talent will chase guru. And one example is Andrew Ng. I mean, wherever Andrew Ng will go, a lot of AI engineers will go there. If Andrew Ng is in Google, they will go there. If he goes to Coursera, they will go there. If he goes to Baidu, he'll go there. If he comes to Samsung, he'll bring a lot of talent with him. Our Pranav Mistry brought a lot of talent because he's established thought leader. So like that, we have a program by which we are creating thought leaders in specific COE areas in Bangalore. And then there are other standard interventions that I think every GCC has figured out: how to create architects, how to create algorithm experts, how to create data experts. I won't undermine it, but we have to execute it. Thought everyone has, but we have to really execute it, commit to it, have budget for that, and then have a program, have a L&D senior person, actually holding that commitment to creating capability. What happens in most cases is how much time does the managing director of the organization is focusing towards delivery versus creating future capacity. If it is not in the range of minimum 50-50, I think somewhere there's a problem. That's how I would summarize.
Speaking of this, Dipesh, Samsung is in a space where product life cycles are shrinking, product shelf life is significantly decreasing. So, and the technology is fast evolving. So how do you ensure that the talent is continuously reskilled, upskilled with some of the latest technologies?
Once again, I think I will pass on the entire credit to the Indian engineers than the corporate. Corporate, of course, we play our role, but they are very, very adaptive. They know the latest thing that's happening on the GitHub. They know especially in AI, 90+%, I can say even 95% of the models, data, everything is open source. So they have access to the latest and greatest. So that their zeal to learn is already there. That's the first thing. But what we have done in addition is, for example, Coursera. We have a complete access to entire Coursera database. Any engineer can take any Coursera license. Everything is completely reimbursed by them. If you want to upskill, we also create a playlist, just like you create a Spotify playlist for your wedding anniversary. We create playlists. So you want to be a data intelligence expert today. So we have levels in SRIB. So we have people who are a novice, practitioner, competent, expert, innovator. We have 5 levels in each COE. Every engineer is mapped on a 5-scale: novice, practitioner, competent, expert, innovator. And if you are a practitioner, to become competent, what are the playlists that you need to go through in terms of securing knowledge? And what are the projects you need to execute to secure experience? And then what are the patents or publications you need to do to establish your credibility? So your know-how, your experience, your credibility, all of that when you secure, you basically move from a practitioner to a competent level, and then the journey continues. So there are these programs, Karan, in the company.
This is very interesting, Dipesh. Earlier you brought up the point around ecosystem partnerships. So, ecosystem, you would probably be looking at service providers, universities, and startups. So let me begin with service providers. So what role has the Indian service provider ecosystem played in terms of helping Samsung Research Institute Bangalore grow and mature as a center? And what role do you see service providers playing going forward?
On a broader level, I think we all are existing because of them. They created the brand India in the software business. The people understood that yes, there is software talent in this country because of that service ecosystem around here. So complete credit goes to them to have kickstarted this journey. Even after that, whenever we had to scale, for example, suddenly you want to launch a new smartphone with a new operator in US, and that's the world's first time 3G project to be done. You need like 140 engineers in like 2 months. How do you secure that? So 2 of the local partners helped me get like 60 engineers in like 1 month time. And I was able to secure that ownership of entire US. US first 3G launch was completely done out of SRI Bangalore. Similarly, our network business, when we are securing very important 5G projects, let's say with Verizon USA or many operators in the world, the local ecosystem is actually supporting us to get the right talent at the right time. Now, it's not just helpers, but also thinkers, strategy. We are getting complete support from the local service ecosystem. Lastly, if you want to be COE, especially in a GCC, I don't think your corporate is going to allow you to like stop doing what you are doing well and then move up the chain. You have to continue to deliver what you are doing and then move up. So that's the very difficult part. If you continue to do there, then the management mindshare, leadership mindshare, HR mindshare goes towards achieving that. So that part, if your local service ecosystem is able to deliver, of course under your ownership, but if they are able to deliver, then only your organization can move up the COE. Otherwise, it's very difficult to keep doing. We cannot become 3,000 people GCC to 10,000, 20,000 people GCC. Then the focus on creating COEs will be lost. It will become delivery organizations. We should utilize the ecosystem for scaling, I feel.
And beyond the talent scaling, Dipesh, are there, from a company like Samsung, are there more expectations from a service provider in terms of contributing on innovation, etc.? So what would that be, beyond the talent scaling?
Service ecosystem has a very, very good reach to the global consumers. Global, for example, Samsung, we are very, very good in B2C. I'm just pulling up something. Okay, if we want to establish ourselves in B2B, where should we go? Do you think Samsung has a larger reach to the global B2B customers, or our Indian service ecosystem has a larger reach to the global B2B customers? They know what IT transformations, what digital transformations each of the Fortune 500 companies taking in the world. They know it even before Samsung knows it. So if that knowledge can be utilized and the Samsung products can be positioned with the IT solutions created by local IT service companies, we can make inroads into the global B2B much faster than we would do it by ourselves. So there's a lot of value there, a lot of knowledge there. But if we had the right focus and right mechanisms to co-work, we could utilize, we could leverage.
That's interesting that you cite, 360-degree partnerships as a way to drive value for Samsung's customer base as well, in partnership with the service providers. Coming to, the startups. So in the context of the CoEs that have been created, how have you seen some of the local Indian startups contribute to the research and innovation journey?
Usually what we are learning from startups in SRI Bangalore is on the services side. On the embedded software side, embedded wireless communication side, embedded on-device AI side, I think we are much advanced because we have invested in last 2 decades on that. But when we have to deliver special content, for example, to our customers, I'll give you one example. Have you heard about Glance, the InMobi Glance? That comes as a lock screen story. So every time you unlock your phone, the screen that comes out presents you the current latest thing happening in India as per your interest. If you're interested in cricket, you will see cricket stories. If you're interested in tourism, you will see tourism related stories. So this entire partnership was created between Glance in Bangalore, SRI in Bangalore, and we've launched across all the handsets in India. So services is where, and we've also invested. I think there must be media news about that. We've invested in about 12 startups in India. So in their consumer journeys, where Samsung assets can play, for example, Samsung Pay can come in at the payment time, or in our journey to, for example, if you want to find the nearest store, you could use Magic Pin and then go there. So where there are clear points of intersection in the consumer journey, either in their journey, our input, or in our journey, their input, definitely a strong collaboration with the startup is helping.
And what about universities, Dipesh?
Universities also very good collaboration we have. We on multiple levels. Okay, one is of course at PhD. Starting is to talent upskill. We have PhD programs with 2-3 universities, IIT Chennai, IISc Bangalore, where our people go for a regular PhD and come back. We got help from the IIITB Bangalore to create unique course, because when we were changing to a CoE in AI, native computer science knowledge was very important, whereas many of our existing engineers had electronics and communication background. Their only computer science knowledge was Cunningham and Ritchie. C programming, stack programming, embedded programming. Taking that, moving into the native computer science space is not going to be easy. So we had a 2-year intervention done by IIITB Bangalore, where they made our existing well-performing electronics and communication engineers well aware of the natives of OS and computer science and AI. So that's how in talent upskilling, definitely university help. In projects also, university are helping. We have special projects in speech recognition, language expansion, far field recognition, in understanding relationships in a family. When you are in an IoT setup, how do you understand relationships in a family? So there are these projects that universities are helping us with. And the student ecosystem in India, it's amazing. I mean, we have a program known as PRISM. So at any point of time, there are about 1,000, currently there are about 1,500 students at any point of time working on active projects of Samsung across India, across like 100 schools. So it definitely helps to upskill them, and at the same time, identify the right talent to be hired later.
Coming to the next question, Dipesh, Samsung SRIB again has been talking about powering digital India. So can you share some more thoughts on what this is and how Samsung is contributing to what's happening in the local market?
Local market is also very, very critical for local R&D. Even though most of our charters are global charters, whatever technology we are developing, let's say wireless communication or 6G or camera image processing or vision AI, voice AI, Bixby, artificial intelligence. These are mostly for global consumers, but a local R&D has a very, very important role to play in a local market, especially the CoEs. So we are the ones which are really the senses of the company to understand the local consumer trends, consumer behaviors, how the embedded generation are consuming content, what they are utilizing, what kind of value they expect from the product that they buy in terms of performance, in terms of wow feature, in terms of daily life delights. So this understanding is very, very important as a CoE or a GCC. Specifically about powering digital India, our India CEO, Ken Kang, this is his vision. For last 5 years, our vision for India was make for India. So when the government announced make in India, for us, it was already like a decade old. We have been making in India for like 10 years now. So we went one step ahead and we set up our vision as make for India. Means we created unique hardware products for India. For example, you could make curds in a refrigerator. This is not launched anywhere in the world because it's unique to Indian consumer lifestyle. You want curd every day in India, whether you are in north or south. So being able to make a curd in a refrigerator, that concept, technology, development with a local partner, everything is done out of India. So we continue to make for India. Then with the world's largest factory in Noida, we started now making for the world. So make for India and then make for the world happened. Now the next 5 years, the vision that is set by our CEO Ken Kang is that India is a land of MZ generation. And how do we power this very, very energetic demography around us by digital means? That's why we call it the powering digital India, be it establishing the 5G network in the country, or providing the greatest and latest smartphones, or providing the best the home appliance technology and robotics and automation and AR. So all of that technology will come together to power this young generation to achieve what they want. That's our vision. And then the R&D, of course, has the major role to play in this because it's all technology driven.
So, Dipesh, it was a fascinating conversation, a lot of deep insights. We have just about a minute to go, but would like to seek some closing thoughts from you. Any recommendations to the peer GCCs in India in terms of how can they evolve faster in terms of driving innovation and delivering bigger impact to their parent enterprises?
I think each one of us are in our own context and already doing, I think, very well, and we are all learning from each other. There are multiple ecosystem places where we are getting connected. First of all, before we close, once again, thanks to NASSCOM, not just today but for like years since I can remember about software industry. You've been driving and setting those ambitions. Okay, where once we reach certain place, NASSCOM is always setting a much bigger ambition. So we are again rethinking. So you are making us think hard. That's very important. For the GCC, I can say, I think we have to check our ambition levels. I mean, do we have high enough ambition or not? Are we satisfying too early by getting engineering leaderships of projects? Should we go one step ahead? And of course, there are very energetic tussles there. If you want to really become a strategic enabler versus engineering enabler, these are very two different games. So do we have the tenacity to play that game? Do we have the right talent to play that game? Do we have that much skin in the game that when we get contested there, will our leaders stay with us through the journey, because it's not going to be easy when we cover engineering leadership to a strategic enabler. And just software engineering and architecture and programming will not be enough. User experience, design, product management. So we have to invest in these additional capacities also to create the really world-class COE, I think. Engineering being the center, but both design and product management together, I think, can probably make a good case to be a strategic enabler from India.
Perfect, Dipesh. A quick word to the audience. You did post some of the questions. I've tried to bring that up as a part of the conversation with Dipesh. We may have missed out on some of the questions. We'll try and see how we could address that. But again, thanks to the audience for joining us today. Madhu, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, really, thanks a lot, Dipesh and Karan. And it was such an engrossing discussion today. And I was just thinking, time went past like anything, actually. So, thanks for holding that, discussion thoroughly well. And I'm really sure, I think, we had missed many of the questions. Probably we will work with, Dipesh and Karan, and, please look forward, we would send out a note, probably we have one more session to go in this series, where we would be hearing from Intel on their journey in building the technology CoEs. So once the two parts gets completed, we would come out with a note, kind of a playbook where which will capture the discussion pointers, and also we would capture the questions which is which are raised, which are not addressed as well in that. And once again, thank you to Dipesh and Karan. And for the audience, we are hearing you, and once again, we would love to hear your feedback as well on this session. Please write into us, and please feel free to add your inputs as well to improve this discussion further. And thank you, Dipesh and Karan.
Final thought, Madhu. We called it an immersive session because we could actually get to the depths of how certain things work in the context of a GCC. And I'm sure, thanks to you, Dipesh, I think the session lived up to what it was.
Yeah, awesome. My pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.